In our last video, we were looking at the demise of the Windermere Hotel because of the fire that occurred. We were looking at the fact that after the fire, Fort Huron Golf Club moved their clubhouse from their property over to the property where the Windermere was. This isn't a very good picture of the clubhouse, but it was all I had at the time. But since I did the last video, I've come across this postcard here. It gives a very good picture of what the clubhouse looked like. And something else I wanted to clarify from our last video is the tennis court that you're looking at here. You can see in this photograph from the satellite that it's a cement tennis court and it's running east and west. Since our last video, I've been in contact with Suzanne Richardson, and her home actually sits on where the south end of the hotel would have been. And she told me that the courts there, the tennis courts, were clay courts, and they ran north and south, which if you look closely, you can see from this photograph that that's correct. So only part of the clay tennis court would be under the tennis court of today. But still, I think it'd be so cool to come out your back door and look out there at that tennis court and say, hey, this is where history happened. Just looking and imagining how that fire transpired and how all that furniture was taken out and put in that exact location. But then again, I've always been a little bit of a dreamer. Also, since we're on the Windermere, I came across this menu for the Windermere that I didn't use in video number 14. I thought I'd share it with you now. I think you'll find it interesting. I did. Before we leave the area of the Windermere, I want you to look at one more thing. I came in possession of a photograph yesterday that I had never seen before from a different perspective of the Windermere. And before I show you this photograph, I kind of want to set the stage. Many of you know that there's three major resort beaches along Lake Huron, near Fort Huron, and that they started just beyond Lakeside. You had Lakeside, and then you had the Aronia Beach, you had the Gratiot Beach, which is where the Windermere Hotel was located, and then you had Keewatin Beach, which is where the Keewatin Amusement Park was, and later the Gratiot Inn would be. In this winter scene, you can see the signage of the Gratiot Beach welcoming you to that area. And it was a different area than the Aronia Beach. The Aronia Beach had cottages, pretty simple cottages actually. Here's a photograph of them. But when you got to Gratiot Beach, the cottages were completely different. We wouldn't probably call them cottages, but many of the people that lived there called them their cottage, but they were really nice homes. And the landscaping was different. There was a lot of grass, so a nice sidewalk to walk down, and it extended quite far, actually, I think past the Windermere Hotel. But the Windermere was definitely a part of the Gratiot Beach community. If you look over here to the far left, you can see the homes are fairly close to the Windermere. And the one just south of the house had a unique design on the front of the house. Not exactly a tower, but perhaps a bay area. And in this photograph, looking from the opposite direction, looking south, you can see that first home much better. And you can see the sidewalk continuing all the way up to the Windermere. When you see pictures like this, I always thought the Windermere was more isolated from the other homes. But it wasn't. And this photograph proves the point. This photograph was sent to me by Suzanne Richardson, who I mentioned earlier lived just on the south end of what the Windermere Hotel used to be. And it shows a different perspective of the Windermere Hotel, one I've never seen before. If you look closely, you can see the Windermere Hotel on the far background of the photograph, right up next to these houses, or at least pretty close to these houses. And here, if you look at the arrow, that's where the Windermere Hotel is. And in the insert, you can see what part of that hotel is showing in the black and white picture. the two turrets basically and the south side of the hotel. But I thought it certainly was a unique perspective, and I was very happy to get this photograph. Before we leave this area, let's return to Aronia Beach. When I made video number 14 that covered Aronia Beach, well, that was 7 years ago, I think 2012, and I've learned some additional things since then, so I'd like to share those things with you, if you don't mind. And if you do, I'm still going to share them with you. But let's take a look at this map again. You can see where Aronia Beach was. And when Aronia Beach was being built as a resort, there was no canal. But as you look at this map here, you can see the canal actually splits Aronia Beach in half, therefore separating it, all the cabins from the dining hall and the chapel. So they had to build a bridge. And this is that bridge. And it appears that this bridge was used for more than just walking across. If you look at these boys having a good time on this bridge, it made a great diving platform. I'm not sure I'd want to dive into the canal. I'm not sure how deep it was there, but they were taking a risk. And while we're at this bridge, let's look at a couple pictures here. This is the bridge right after the terrible storm of 1913. And then looking at this picture, you can't really tell because it's a black and white photo. But what you think was water there, that's all sand. The photograph was taken from Lake Huron. The canal was just filled with sand. In this next photograph, we see the canal looking toward the lake. The canal was formerly 30 feet wide and 8 feet deep. Now you can see that it's 80 feet wide, still 8 feet deep, but filled with sand instead of water for 1,000 feet back from the shoreline. The bridge has no beginning and no end. Well, it does, you just can't get to them. When the canal was built, the city took 150 feet away from the Aronia resort, including 6 cottages. Marcus Young, the owner, compensated for this by building 6 additional cottages at the north end of the resort. At its height, then, after all building and rebuilding, Aronia consisted of 60 cottages, along with a dining hall, resort hall, and chapel on 20 acres of lakefront land. It was the first resort to establish itself in that area, but it wouldn't be the only one for long. With Aronia Beach raking in a tremendous amount of customers, even turning people away, it wouldn't take long for enterprising entrepreneurs to realize they too could cash in on the lucrative seasonal trade by putting up hotels along the evolving lakeshore. Charles Ward, the Port Huron capitalist who thought up Gratiot Beach, started the hotel ball rolling when he realized that he could probably clear a tidy sum with a summer hotel right among the lots he was selling off for private cottages. And so the same year he began offering Gratiot Beach lots for sale, 1885, he set aside 4 of the lots for his inn. They totaled 200 feet in which to build. The idea made business sense, and he convinced Port Huron lumberman Henry Howard and John Sanborn to join him in the venture. The new Ward's Hotel opened for business in 1886. It was changed later to the Windermere Hotel. Now, most of you might say, I've never heard of Charles Ward. But if you've been observant, and you've been at the south end of the Pine Grove Park at this arch, you would have seen his name on top of the arch, and it says this: Bequeathed to the people of Port Huron by Charles Albert Ward. So not only was he a capitalist, but he was also a philanthropist. What about dining at these resorts? The cottages didn't have any kitchen facilities, so they were pretty much at the mercy of the owner of the Aronia. And he had a dining hall, and that price wasn't included in their weekly amount that they were charged. And that weekly rate was $3.50 per person per week. Don't seem like much. Today's dollar, that's about $100 per person per week. So a family of 5, you're looking at roughly $500 in today's dollars just for the meals, not counting what they had to pay for the board. The board would have been about $2,500 to $3,000 a month. So if you add on another $2,000 in food, it could get up there pretty expensive. Once the Windermere Hotel was built, the folks at Aronia had a choice, 2 choices actually, for dinner. They could go to the dining hall at Aronia, or they could go to the dining room at the Windermere. All they had to do is walk down that sidewalk, as we saw in a previous picture, and the Windermere wouldn't be that far away. This is a photograph of the Windermere Hotel dining room. And this photograph, as well as a couple other ones you saw today, came out of this book, Up North, by Douglas Scott Brooks. And most all the information I gave you, too, was from this book. And if you haven't got this book on your shelf yet, do it. It's a great book for anybody, not only a history buff, but someone that just wants to know what folks were like back then. The reason the cover says St. Louis colonies is because a lot of the folks, probably most of the folks, came from St. Louis that were from out of state. Mr. Young's hard work at Aronia paid off as the resort filled up summer after summer. In July 15, 1899 newspaper, it said, "It is remarked that every shanty, tent, and cottage along the shore is rented. A number of those who are determined to stay will bring tents for sleeping accommodations." And I think these are the tents you see here. In order to take some of the pressure off Aronia Beach, Mr. Young opened another hotel. This pretty 2-story hotel was called Maple Villa. Mr. Young opened it around 1897. Despite a slight drawback of not actually being on the lake, it sat across the road behind Aronia Beach cottages amid the maple trees. You can see in this photo that Gratiot was a dirt road, and you can see the streetcar tracks there as well. It's hard to believe Gratiot was a dirt road that looked like this. Just a little path going up north. Thanks to its low rates, the small inn attracted plenty of customers who didn't mind not having a water view. In the end, Maple Villa outlasted both Mr. Young and Aronia itself, soldiering on until the late 1930s. Alright, it's time to start the video now. Oh, wait a minute, I have started it. This was supposed to be about a murder of a country western star that had some connection to the clubhouse of the Port Huron golf course. But I got sidetracked again. Try to keep my videos to 15 minutes. And I have about a minute left, so I'll never get it in, so I apologize. I'll get it in my next video if I don't get sidetracked again. Well, our 15 minutes isn't up yet, so let me try to find something I can entertain you with this last minute or so. Here's an article printed August 4th, 1907, and it's regarding this. Some patrons expected employees to know their place, and this is what was written. Because the waiter girls, the waiters at the dining rooms and dining halls, because the waiter girls go swimming in Lake Huron, some of the guests have lodged a formal protest with the management of the Hotel Windermere. The lake is so large, says the manager of the hotel, that we don't see how we can prevent the girls taking a dip in it. Some mean things are being said about the protesters. It's the wives of the resorters making a kick is one story. They're sore because the men guests show an inclination to teach the maids to float and leave their wives to paddle around alone. Another allegation is that they're trying to make the girls go swimming in Black River. The humor of this consists in a locally notorious condition. Even a carp, which isn't a facetious fish, won't swim in Black River. Well, I think the wives were a little upset about the attention these young waiter girls were getting from their husbands. Well, guess what? We hit our 15 minutes, so I'll see you in our next video, and we'll try to get to what I was going to get to in this video.